Hi, my name is Bryndis Whitson, and you're listening to the Zebras to Apples podcast, the fun and fascinating stories of supply chain and logistics. My guest for this podcast is Siobhan Chinnery, who has had an amazing career as a supply chain and leadership expert. Siobhan showcases how you can move around the supply chain industry and expand your knowledge. She's worked in forest products, oil and gas, global projects and customs, propane, and heavy equipment. Siobhan is now sharing her knowledge with others as an adjunct instructor at SAIT and a principal of Be Grateful Management. Siobhan and I dive right into this discussion with a chat about negotiation. We talk about everything from tracking weather patterns to improved deliveries, to customs, to moving secret Porsches. Please join me in a conversation with my friend, Siobhan Chinnery, a true powerhouse. So I'm here with Siobhan, and we're talking about supply chain logistics, and Siobhan has such a great history, and I thought we'd just really start kind of talking about your career history and some amazing stories that you've got from the industry.
Sure. So I think the interesting thing about my story is how I started, in that I was actually working in accounting, and I was asked by my controller to go do a special project. And the special project was a strategic sourcing initiative with consultants.
Okay.
And this was 1998, I think. And so at the time, at least to my knowledge, there really wasn't any educational programs to
Especially
learn.
then.
To learn about strategic sourcing and that sort of thing. So I went on this project, and we were in a trailer in the parking lot at the company. It was Canfor. And we worked with these consultants who flew in every Monday from Chicago and flew out every Thursday. And we worked with them for over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I shared an office with Nick, who was a 30-year former Anderson Consulting guy. And I just learned everything from him. And so when I would write an RFP, he would, almost like a teacher, he would correct it and give me feedback.
Exactly.
And when I would do negotiations, he would be there and watch me and coach me. And so it was an amazing way to learn the business. For 2 years, I have this guy working with me on everything, coaching me.
Who's got so much experience in so many things.
Yeah. Back then he was 30 years in. And so it was really interesting.
Yeah. And what a good way to learn all of those ins and outs too. Because RFPs, I'm sure, have so many different things to add in and don't add in.
Yeah. And then learning too, just these different negotiation strategies, like how do you generate leverage when you don't have leverage? So, we in the sawmill industry and in the pulp mill industry, frankly, your sawmill or pulp mill is usually built right on a rail line. So you're pretty tied to that railway company.
Right.
And our pulp mill, we were on a CN line, and we didn't like the price increases we were getting from CN. And so Nick and the other consultants worked with me on developing a strategy where we could create some kind of leverage where CN would actually take us seriously. And so we did a big trucking trial, because on the pulp mill, there still was the old doors, the old loading doors for trucks. That were there previous to the railway line. So, and then in order for CN to make sure that CN was aware of it, we put this big splashy story in our company newsletter that went out to all of our suppliers and all of our employees every month. And we put in this big splashy thing about this trial we were doing on trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And we actually did it at a substantial increase per ton, cost per ton. We did truck out pulp to make sure CN realized that we were really serious about this, that we weren't just going to be holding to any rate increase they wanted. And so I always thought that was a really interesting story. And I've shared that with, my teams over the years, because sometimes you don't have leverage and you have to think of creative ways to create leverage. And in the end, we ended up going to Montreal, and that was really exciting for me because I got to go to Montreal and negotiate with CN. And in that case, I had 2 of those senior consultants watching me and coaching me. And it was really good. And we did get a better deal than they had first, not even offered, just sort of pushed across the table. And this is what you're paying now. So, yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. What a good way to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you do have to create leverage, right? In order to have a conversation. You have to remember too, when you have leverage and when you don't have leverage.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people who think that they have leverage when they don't. And then the negotiations don't go very well.
Oh, right.
Right.
Because, you're not on the same levels.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I know another, person who's been around as long as I have or longer, and he's really into should cost analysis, which I agree is amazing, right? You want to understand how much you should be paying is what should cost analysis is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you should be paying. If you have zero leverage, the supplier isn't going to, reduce his price because you've come in and said, well, I should be paying this. Well,
right. It just,
He'll just take his business elsewhere, right? You have to understand your leverage.
Right. Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. That's really interesting. I'm sure like you've been able to take that into so many other things along the way.
Yeah. Too. Well, yeah. There's so many funny, I remember one day when I worked at Petro-Canada was bring your kid to school or work day, and colleagues asked other people if they would talk to the kids that were in. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. And I taught all the kids how to negotiate a later curfew with their parents.
Oh.
Because, again, you had to think about what the leverage is, right? And so I was teaching the kids, what your parents want to know is you're safe. The only reason they want you in at a certain time is they want to know you're safe.
Right.
So I said, if you can somehow convince them you're safe, you might be able to get your curfew later. Because you have to just make sure you meet their interests, right? In interest-based negotiating. Totally. And understand your parents' interests and then build some leverage. So what can you do for your parents? Maybe you take your little brother somewhere, or, so it was really funny because then in the elevator later, I had people going, what the heck? Why did you do that? So that was fun. You can use it in any way you want.
Completely. Oh, I like that. And what a good teaching method too.
Yeah. It's fun. And it gets the kids' interest in supply chain.
Yeah. Well, and that's, a big thing too is just getting people interested in supply chain. So when you think of your career, I'm sure you've got lots of different stories of that was a really neat moment. Can you think of one kind of moment?
One that always stands out to me, and it's probably one of the oldest, is back in the 90s, a gentleman who worked for me, he had... I like this story because it talks about how important it is that you do your research, and we talk about strategic procurement or strategic sourcing or category management. And, the first step is really knowing what are we talking about, right?
Right.
Doing your internal research, like how much of this product do we use and when do we use it and why do we use it and can it be substituted with another product or not? And then market research. And it's so important to understand the market. And this gentleman on my team had a salesman come in to see him, and he had a contract. I think it was Monsanto at the time, and it was a chemical that would be kind of akin to the Roundup of the forest industry, but it was specialized, and it had a patent on it. And the salesman came in and said to the gent on my team, we have a really great offer for you. We can roll over your contract at the existing price and lock it in for 3 years without any price increase. But we have to do it now before your contract expires. And this is just a great offer we're providing to you. And the gent on my team, he looked at the history and he knew that this product did increase usually fairly significantly at the end of every contract. But, the old saying, when something seems to be too good to be true.
Yeah.
So he did his research and discovered that the product that we were using had a patent, which was about to expire. And so then when the patent expired, then Dow now had this product coming. All of the other chemical suppliers had a like product coming to the market. And so the price actually dropped dramatically when the patent ended.
Oh, yeah.
And so had he signed that 3-year contract, we would have been paying way too much for this product for 3 long years while the competitors came out with their much cheaper products. So I always thought that was a really, because if you act without thinking strategically, if you take advantage of a situation that presents itself without really understanding the situation, you could make the wrong decision.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and really taking that extra time to do that research.
Yeah. And it really, And that's one of the challenges, I'd say. You see a lot of people maybe banging on about how operations thinks we're too slow, or that we take too much time, or we get in their way and we're not fast enough. But there's a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
And anything in life, frankly, if you do your diligence, you're going to have a better result than jumping quickly into something without understanding what you're getting into. And it's the same with supply chain.
Yeah.
And I think there's greater risk when you don't really understand what you're up to.
Yeah, and I think with supply chain too, there's so many opportunities that you can take from, going from one industry to another, as long as you understand the supply chain aspects too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've often said that in my career, I felt like I could work in any industry, like accounting, right? When I was in accounting, I can count the beans in any organization, any industry. It's all the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's the same with supply chain. Like, yes, it's helpful to understand how your business is using the product and having a good understanding of that industry. Like in category management, you often find your category managers have a pretty deep knowledge of the industry or category that they're working in. Like maybe it's transportation. It's often very helpful if someone is a transportation category manager, comes from the transportation industry. That's not really necessary. You can learn it and you can still negotiate pricing or contracts regardless of what it is you're purchasing.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that, I've been fortunate because I've moved around into different industries and learned a lot about a lot of different industries.
Which is kind of neat. And so, you've worked in oil and gas, you've worked in like major procurement companies or, source. Yeah. So many different areas too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started off mainly in like strategic sourcing procurement kind of roles. And then that evolved into inventory management and that, my background in accounting really helped me with that.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So I did a lot of really interesting inventory projects where, it isn't uncommon for organizations to have tons of obsolete stock sitting in different locations or out on the side of a logging road or out on the side of a oil and gas, access road.
Exactly. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And if the company has been using a periodic approach to inventory, then they write it off when they buy it.
Right.
Right. And so you could have fairly expensive things sitting on the side of the road somewhere, which was written off. But if someone rounds them up and accounts for them, then they become an asset and you put them on the balance sheet.
Oh, right.
And you can reduce your write-off. But it's a lot of work to do that.
Yes.
And then if you have really obsolete inventory, you need to write it down. So it becomes a really interesting exercise in managing working capital.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so that's an interesting part that I spent a lot of time. And then I also went into logistics, worked for DB Schenker, so a freight forwarder.
Yeah.
So I, had responsibility for our local freight, the projects team, essentially for all of Canada. So any major project in Canada that was looking for project freight, that was my team would be quoting on that. So it was more of a sales role, which was interesting too, because I was out chasing business and, meeting with clients and that kind of thing. And then I also took over the customs team, right? And that's really interesting how our clients would export or import products and what tariffs were they paying and that type of thing. So that was a really interesting part. So I think that's, when I see people speak about our industry and just call it procurement or maybe just call it transportation, I think it kind of breaks my heart a little because there's so much more.
There's so much of it.
Yeah. Like the end-to-end supply chain, there's so much, right?
And every piece has a supply chain and every little thing. And there's so many different areas within that too.
Yeah. And it can be super complex or very, very detailed, very, very strategic. It can be, high level. It can be right in the weeds. It's if you're not sure what you want in your career, you can kind of experience it all in supply chain. So.
Totally. And also too, it feeds well into so many different personality types or styles too, because Yeah, some people really like to be in the weeds, and some people like to be looking from different perspectives too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people like, more repetitive type thing where they're just kind of doing the same thing over and over. And then some people like things that change every day.
Yeah.
And that was me. I was in my accounting life, I was getting bored. And I think I was becoming difficult to manage because about 18 months or so, I would say to my boss, like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And so that's when she put me in the trailer because, she was, I think, maybe getting tired of trying to find accounting jobs for me, right?
Exactly. Now, exactly. Something completely different where every day it could be something a little different.
Yeah, and it was. Like, I worked in supply chain for 30 years and every day was different.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many different aspects. Like one day you could think your day is going to go one way and suddenly you get a phone call going, oh, surprise, this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because you could get a lot of surprises. Yeah. Like, and I'd say more so lately, some of the surprises have been some of the biggest challenges with the climate change. Like it's just, it is having an effect, right?
Very much so.
We've had last summer, 2 summers ago, we had forest fires all over northern Alberta.
Did we ever? Yeah.
Evacuating our warehouses. I had 200 people in a warehouse and there's a grass fire right outside. And we had to evacuate the warehouse. And we had a muster point, of course, as any safety protocol. But our muster point was in the middle of the grass fire.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So you're suddenly pivoting to, we got to get all these people to a safe location and get them accounted for. And then also, this was our big distribution hub. And if it went down or went up in flames, how are we operating?
Oh, yeah.
It would have been pretty challenging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Did everything work out?
It did, yeah. The fire department came and put out the grass fire, and we were back in within an hour. So,
phew.
I'm in a meeting. I'm in an executive meeting in another city, and my phone's ringing off the hook, and it was, this major distribution center might be up in smoke soon.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy moly, what are we doing?
Totally. That would add that extra piece of like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because organizations often talk about having business continuity plans, but it's been my experience that they aren't very well documented. And in some organizations I've been in, there isn't even someone who's identified as the person who should be looking after that. And so then it falls on management who are already pretty busy just running the distribution center, and they're supposed to write a business continuity plan, and they don't know what they're supposed to write.
No.
And so then it either gets written poorly or maybe not at all. And then a situation like that occurs and everybody's looking at each other like, okay, so what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. But that would also change everything, hopefully, to go, okay, maybe we need a plan.
Exactly.
That's better. Yeah.
It is. It is a good way to spur action into getting those business continuity plans. And I saw in my career, I also worked at an organization that had a major cyber attack. And that was something else. Like, it was one of those ransomware ones, and the organization refused to pay the ransom. And so we were down. Like every system we had was down. And the only things that was working was systems that we had which were SaaS, like software as a service. And so in somebody else's cloud.
Right.
And so, for example, our Microsoft Teams we used was in Microsoft's cloud.
Yeah.
So we were, thankfully, anything we had on Microsoft, we were able to use.
Oh, thank goodness.
So we could email and we could communicate.
Right.
But imagine if you couldn't even do that. Because that was almost the only thing we had was our payroll system. So people were still getting paid. And we had the Microsoft tools.
Right.
So we could communicate and use Excel spreadsheets and write emails and Word documents.
Yeah, but you can't access anything else.
But we couldn't. No, everything was manual. Absolutely manual. So we needed Excel, frankly, because we were doing everything manually for about a month.
Oh, wow.
This is, hundreds and hundreds of transactions daily across Canada.
Yeah.
Probably thousands, actually. Thousands of transactions daily. We were all tracking in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of corrupt laptops because of the cyber attack. So I was out running around on a Sunday at Best Buys
Because you'd have to,
getting new laptops for my team.
Right.
And the IT department gave me the type of laptop I should be getting. And so then I was literally going to every store I could find this specific laptop in and buying everything they had in inventory. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, completely. I think Best Buy, was like, okay.
Yeah, it was. Well, at first I'd call and go, do you have this certain laptop? Yes, we do. How many do you have? Okay, put them on hold. I'll be right there.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be doing that in my career.
Oh, completely. That adds that. Yeah. Well, I even think of like a time for my mother when it was during the flood in Calgary, and she was working at the elections office, and they had a whole bunch of iPads that they'd used for the census. And so suddenly she got a phone call going, we need the iPads. Because everyone's working from home or they can't access the servers and stuff like that. So my mother had to figure out how to get to the elections office because all of the different roadways were closed.
Right.
And bridges and stuff like that. And then get to the office, then get down to, which was in the Northeast, get down to the, emergency operations center and drop off all of these iPads. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. In the year of the floods, the organization I was working for, we still had desktops. Some of our employees were on desktops and some were on laptops.
Oh, yeah.
And laptops were more expensive. So generally, the higher up in the organization you were, you had a laptop and others had desktops.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was interesting because of course, the downtown was closed and we weren't allowed to go in to the business and get our laptops because we were right in the zone. But most of the team who had laptops hadn't actually taken them home, so they were in the office. So they might as well have been desktops.
Right.
So we did, someone did sneak in and get them.
Exactly. That gives you a chance to,
Yeah, we had to get them, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, completely, because you've got to be able to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, but then in that case too, we were out buying laptops because we moved. All of the downtown staff moved to our southeast office, and we had to get all these laptops set up for them over there.
Yeah, because moving all of the desktops would have been way too much.
Yeah. Oh no, we couldn't do that. We snuck in like someone, I won't say who, snuck in after dark and got all the laptops off the desks, and then we got to the southeast location, and then we had to figure out whose were whose because they all look alike, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was quite a operation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, turning on every single one and just like, who is logged in?
Whose is this? Yeah.
Yeah, and hope they logged in the right way. Yeah.
But, again, in that case, I don't know if we ever looked at a business continuity plan or even if we had one written. It is interesting how even through the pandemic, you make things happen.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have these business continuity plans, like to actually have someone who's thought through what would happen.
Yeah.
Will people actually read it? Who knows when the chips are down, but it's good that people have thought it through.
Yes.
And so organizations that have really rigorous plans and programs around this would review it on a regular basis. So even if you never read the document or you didn't like go, oh my gosh, we're in crisis, where's that document? You would be familiar with what was in it because of the rigorous routine and process around it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most critical part.
Yeah. Well, completely. When you think of like even with the pandemic and everyone suddenly having to work from home or work in all these other things and making sure you suddenly had Microsoft Teams or something that you didn't potentially have before.
Yeah. Like my organization at the time, they sent thousands of people home in a matter of 2 days. And they didn't really know who would want what, system. So we had all of them. We had Teams, we had Zoom, we had Google Meet, we had everything.
Right.
So every meeting I was in, it was the person who books the meeting's preference. So sometimes you were in Teams, sometimes you were in Zoom. It was pretty confusing, honestly, but we managed.
Yeah.
And then at the end of a year or so, we decided which one we liked the best and went with that solution.
Yeah.
But for that first time, the first short while there, it was everything.
Oh, totally. And so many organizations use different ones.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, within our organization, we were using different ones.
Yeah.
It was pretty challenging, but it worked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, looking at kind of some of your experience and stuff like that, with talking about, emergency preparedness or disasters, as we were talking about, and, I think you were saying there was something in regards to the atmospheric river that you had to kind of deal with too.
Yeah. Well, it's a big part of supply chain is getting things on time, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm teaching a course now at SAIT, and this is one of the things that the class is learning about, like in capacity planning. Do you keep inventory or do you keep inventory lower and have, multiple logistics routes and that type of thing? And so it is a real strategic decision as to how much inventory you keep
very much
close
so.
by.
Yeah.
And how much do you rely on trucking in or flying in or whatnot. And we found in our business, one of the businesses I was at was Superior Propane. We were delivering propane. Well, we had customers we couldn't get to because the atmospheric rivers wiped out so many roads.
Yeah.
And in BC particularly, and in northern parts of Canada, people are on propane, not on natural gas. And so if their tank doesn't get filled up, they don't have heat for their home, or they...
Right, which is pretty important.
Yeah. Or they don't have, some people's stoves, they can't cook dinner, right? And so the propane becomes a critical service, but the roads are gone. And so you're trying to get to people's homes in all sorts of terrible conditions. And so those weather events have been fairly significant for an industry like the propane distribution industry. And the super cold winters, too. People suddenly going through their propane like much quicker. And you're trying to get to those homes because that company will deliver to big corporations, but they also deliver to cottages in Lake Country in Ontario. And during the pandemic, a lot of people went to live in their cottages. And so they were using a lot more propane.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was really cold. And so we had people in cottages, way higher numbers than usual in the wintertime. And trying to get the propane to all of these locations. That normally would not be a big demand in the winter.
Yep. And that makes a completely different road conditions.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting business model, too, because you can't, like truckers, as everyone in our industry knows, there's a real high demand for truckers. And trying to find more and more truckers is maybe not the solution. Like, you can try, but there just is a limited number. And so we would have peak shaving events we could see when a cold snap was coming, and we knew when a cold snap was coming, we would have a huge spike in demand.
Oh, yeah.
So we would reach out to customers and try and pull their deliveries ahead and get more delivered early so that we could get through the peaks.
What a good idea to make sure that you had, because otherwise you've got like everyone demanding their...
Yeah. And we had these really brilliant people who did all this modeling with weather forecasts, because the biggest spike that we would see every year was the first cold snap. And that was much, much bigger than any other cold snap through the winter. It was the very first one. So we had this team of really smart people who would be modeling based on weather forecasts across Canada when we thought the first peak would be. And then we would try and pull forward as many deliveries as we could early to avoid that huge peak.
Oh, completely.
Because otherwise we would be, we could miss you might miss someone's home, right? You just run out and they would use up their propane before you could get there. So we really, for the safety of those people, we have to pull a lot of orders forward.
Yeah, and looking across the entire country, because, you're delivering in like so many different areas, from like, Vancouver Island to,
to Prince Edward Island.
Exactly. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And knowing, you almost need a meteorologist on staff.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I didn't realize there is sites where you can download all this weather data. And of course, as with any forecast, you look backwards first. And so they have all this historical data, and then they have modeling and future expected data.
Yeah.
And they would pull all this data. But you think about it too, you're trying to think about the whole winter in how many cities, or even not cities, towns across the country.
Yeah.
And temperatures by like what, the hour, and what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's very detailed, a lot of data.
Exactly. And you're predicting when there might be like a, blizzard or something like that too.
Yeah.
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 And it's fascinating too when you realize that, we look at kind of like farmers' almanacs or things like that. Like my husband's grandmother would always say, when there's hoarfrost, in 90 days, there'll be precipitation. And so we've been tracking it, and it's almost always accurate.
Yes.
But that leads into interesting forecasting that can impact so many different things. In some of your kind of roles and stuff like that, looking at, like customs you were just kind of talking about, and seeing those kind of aspects. Is there kind of a moment that you think of that kind of, bringing in customs, or that was kind of a bit of a factor?
Customs was dropped on me. It wasn't something I sought out, but it was, we were implementing a new system that had not going very well. So my boss asked me to take it over, and it really was an interesting exercise in, agile, right? Like a scrum process and managing the changes and implementations of a system so that everybody can keep up and customers could keep up with what we were doing. And so it was, one thing I would say is my career has always been change. It's all about change management.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
You're always managing change. And so I would argue that any person that's worked in supply chain in almost any area are really, well, they should be change experts, because it really is so much change. And when I was looking after the customs team, there was a lot of changes that the government was putting in place. And there was reporting changes. They were requiring all of the customs clearance houses to get online, which was good. Right?
Yeah.
But you had to move fast to be able to communicate.
And not all warehouses are designed with update systems in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so meaning the due date of having your systems being able to communicate electronically with the CBSA was a huge challenge. And it was impacting our customers because we were changing the systems. But, in the end, it was the right thing to do because we were shuttling paper back and forth for, thousands and thousands of transactions a day. So it was definitely the right move, but it was pretty challenging for the whole industry and the customers. And of course, the dates would change and, and things beyond your control would change and rates suddenly, or, we'd have customers who suddenly their classification changed or the whole classification would change. And so you have all these customers that are coming to you because their classification has changed. And so, and of course you want to minimize the amount of duties any customer's paying. But at the end of the day, I think the thing that was most interesting to me is a customs clearance company like that is only advising you. And even though we're the experts and we're telling you which classification code you should use, it's still the organization's accountability and responsibility to use the right code. So if I advise you wrong and you don't pay the right duty, I'm not held accountable at all.
Right, but
the company that paid the wrong duty is.
Oh, yeah.
So I always thought that was interesting because I had, on the other end, when I was using a customs clearance organization, we had been moving our frac equipment back and forth across the border incorrectly.
Oh dear.
And but it was on the advice of experts. And we had a huge case with the CBSA, and we appealed it and everything. But we had to pay the correct duty, of course, but then
totally.
we were still penalized for this error, which, we kind of felt like the advisors should have some ownership in that, but no, there's nothing, and your contract clearly states that.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting, and these are things people don't understand, and
No. And that's why you go to the experts.
Yeah. And these are things too that people don't understand about supply chain and what the supply chain group looks after. It's often the customs. Maybe you're not. Sometimes the customs department. Maybe you don't have that department, but the people who are deciding what classification you're in and what you're importing and exporting stuff at is usually in your supply chain group. It's usually in the procurement group, right? And so it's an important thing to get right.
Very much so, especially when so many goods go back and forth across, boundaries and borders and stuff like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with us in the United States, right? And that's why these threats right now are so important to Canada, because we do move stuff back and forth a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of equipment that goes, or big modules or small equipment or all of those pieces. Yeah.
Well, and when I had the customs group, a lot of our customers that were exporting to the United States were exporting to a sister company of their own.
Oh,
so they were the importer and the exporter.
Yeah.
Right? So if there's a duty assessed, like a 25% tariff, the company that pays it in the end is going to be the Canadian company, because it's usually the Canadian company that's the importer, and then it's their U.S. subsidiary or U.S. part of their business that's the importer in the U.S. and Canadian one exporting from Canada. But at the end of the day, all those lines go into one organization, whether it's a Canadian organization or a U.S. organization. That parent company is the one that's going to be paying the tariff.
Totally.
Yeah. And then whether or not they can pass it along to their customer is the question. Yeah.
Especially when it's going between the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it becomes your own cost, really, to move it from your Canadian side to your U.S. side. So then is the product in enough demand in the U.S. that they're willing to pay a higher price to help you cover your extra tariff that you've paid?
Oh, yeah. Well, and there's so many of those little factors that you don't even realize, too. Yeah.
It's a pretty fluid border. It's pretty important to our business.
Very much so. Yeah. And, speaking of borders and stuff like that, I'm sure you've got more than one, time when you were moving things back and forth. Was there kind of one time that just sticks out of like that was a fascinating moment of like just moving something from the U.S. to Canada or Canada to the U.S. or somewhere else in the world?
Oh, well, it was fascinating moving frac equipment to the Middle East.
Oh, yeah, that would be.
Yeah, because we would build our own frac units in Canada, and then we would have to load them up in trailers and get them shipped to the Middle East, and then making sure you have the right classification in that, because it's very expensive equipment that you're shipping, right?
Yeah.
But it was just super complicated because you had to list. So in a piece of frac equipment, we would have thousands of parts that went into that. And where did we buy the parts? Were they Canadian? Were they American? Were they European? So when we would pack up the frac unit, we would have to itemize every single little thing that went into constructing it and where its country of origin was, so that you can determine what's going to catch some duties and what isn't.
Yeah.
And it always, of course, it depends on what country you're importing to. Lots of organizations would go in through Turkey because it was a shorter flight.
Yeah.
And you could land in Turkey and then get your equipment mobilized rather than flying into Saudi. And then, the tariffs are different there, but you still are having tariffs on every border you cross. So if you did land in Turkey and drive across, you still had to manage all that. So understanding the logistics and how we were getting something there, and then where were we and when were we accounting for the duties into what countries.
Exactly. Even the modes too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's something else. But we did tend to with the frac equipment, if we could, we would book like an Antonov or something and fly it over just to get it there quicker, because it was much more profitable to have the frac equipment fracking than sitting on a vessel going across slowly.
Completely. Well, I'm sure even getting an Antonov would have been an interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was exciting. It was really super exciting. But we didn't do it often. But when I was at Schenker, you know, if there was ever an Antonov being booked, like the whole, especially, you know, the whole company would be excited and would be like paying attention to where the Antonov was going to and from. Yeah.
Oh, totally. That would be, And knowing where,
Yeah. Like whenever it was in Calgary, we would have people out there. We would tell our customers it was in town and it was doing a shipment, and people would go out and take pictures of it and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, there's like a big group that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. It's very exciting.
Yeah. That would be so neat to see it. Yeah.
But about crossing the border, I think one of the most challenging things was we would send our frac equipment, like the North Dakota play, the Bakken, is so close to us in Canada. If we needed to send some extra equipment, we would just do the paperwork and cross the border and go frac, and then maybe we'd come back into the Swift Current, Estevan area, you know, and we wanted to be able just to go back and forth.
Right.
But the biggest challenge was it was far easier to move the equipment back and forth than people. So, because if you had Canadians on the equipment driving down to the U.S. to frac, then that would be them working in the United States, which wasn't okay.
Oh, right.
So then we would have to have American drivers, American operators come up to Canada somehow, fly, drive, and then they would have to move the equipment down.
Yeah.
If it was Canadian equipment moving into the U.S., then they would have to move it down and operate it. So it wasn't Canadians working in the U.S.
Right.
And then they would bring the equipment back.
Okay, so they could bring the equipment back, but
but they couldn't work here. Right. So they would bring back the equipment, drop it off, but then they had to skedaddle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because it was not easy, but the easier part was moving the equipment. The people part was challenging.
Yeah. Well, actually, now that you're thinking about it, think of like the one time I was in Laredo, Texas, and, you know, in the Laredo, Mexico, but there's people and their entire job is just to shuttle and go around and around and around all day long in the border because they're cleared to drive in both. And so they go to one drop-off location and the other drop-off location.
Yeah. There's a lot going on in that area.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many of those pieces. So,
Yeah.
And one of the things you were kind of mentioning is now you're teaching at SAIT. So what's it been like kind of, you know, teaching different classes in those kind of areas?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've always loved coaching and mentoring people, so I thought I would like teaching. And so getting out there and meeting the students, and, you know, they just have really good questions and they're really curious and interested in supply chain. And so often their questions are, you know, they're about the subject, but they're often more about like, what's it like having a career in supply chain? Because here's young adults that have invested in, and they're taking a degree in or a diploma program in supply chain and betting on that as a career.
Completely.
So they have a lot of questions about my career, which I think is really interesting. You know, and they do great. They're bright and they're all doing really well in the class, but it has been really interesting, and I've enjoyed it a lot. They're a great bunch of people, and it's good. And I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, like, part of it that I really enjoy too is just walking across campus. You know, I drive and I park and then I walk across campus through all the buildings, and you see all the people rushing to class and stuff. And it reminds me of my university days.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun, even just walking across campus with your coffee and going to class. And it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's really neat. It gives a chance too to like revisit parts of your career too.
Yeah. Because you know, you're helping them visualize something in the textbook. So you do share stories from your career to help them really understand what that paragraph or what are they getting at in that chapter of the textbook. And can you think of a few other times where, you know, there was just like, you know, because I'm seeing that there's a lot of projects, and so like one project to the next project. Do you have any favorite projects
that you've had?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of my most favorite projects was when I was at Sangel. We implemented a new ERP system, which probably strikes people as odd because I know there's a lot of people who've got a lot of scars from ERP systems, but I would say I think we did a really great job. We had a team of people dedicated to the project, and we implemented Microsoft Dynamics AX, and we had a change management team. We put the investment in and had a change management team, and we supported them and did what they asked us to do. And that was such a huge driving force. And then, I had a team of people that were defining the processes in supply chain. And I would say to them, well, I want it to go this way. This is what I think the process should be.
Yeah.
And then they would come back and go, okay, we can do that in the system. And this is how it would look. And they would have this whole document. And it was a decision document. And then I would sign off on it. Yep, that's the way that process should be. And then sometimes they'd say to me, okay, that process you like or want, we can't do it in this system without massive customization. So here's our sort of second best way of doing it that we would recommend to you. And so it's like, okay, that's reasonable. We can work with that. And so then decision document, sign off on it. And so then this really diligent way of defining the processes, signing off on the processes, and then someone just goes and, flicks all the toggles or whatever in the software system. You get what you asked for. Yeah. So it was work up front. Very detailed.
Very.
But really, really paid off. So we then, the change management part, which I love what we did there. We were this was at Sangel, so we had, I think it was 28, 30 sites across North America that went live at the same day. And so the change...
Ooh, what a nerve-wracking, exciting day.
Yeah, 800 employees. So the change management team recommended one was that we trained first a group of people who we called our super users so that then they could help anybody else along the way and be almost like trainers.
Yeah.
And so we trained our super users. And then we had a schedule that was pretty aggressive, but we trained all 800 employees in the 4 weeks prior to going live with in-person sessions. So we would go to a camp, which is what we called our sites. Then we go to a camp, set up the training room, and then train every single person there for 5 days.
Yeah.
And then move on to the next site. And then the first group of people that were trained about 5 weeks before go live. So we went back to the first people.
Oh, yeah, to do a refresher. Right after go live. And so we trained with the refresher. I think we trained something like 820 people or something in 5 weeks. And there was still, to be honest, there was still complaints that some people didn't get enough training. But at the end of the day, every single employee got 5 days of training. Right.
Pretty close to go live.
Exactly.
And it was a pretty successful go live. Like we didn't have any massive hiccups. We didn't have any huge problems. We didn't have to report.
What a relief. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was just such a successful project. It was really fun to be part of. And it was massive. It impacted so many people.
Oh, completely. Sometimes what people don't realize is when you do those changes, like the accuracy and making sure that, you seamlessly flow from one system to the other is so key.
When we were almost going from no system because we were doing a lot on spreadsheets. Like you wouldn't imagine or believe that you could run a multi-billion-dollar organization on spreadsheets, but we were.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing how many companies for the longest time and still might be working on DOS.
Yeah. It was pretty spectacular. So, I give a lot of credit to the executive team there that allowed us to invest in that change management because it did make all the difference.
Yeah, completely. When moving different equipment, different pieces, projects, etc., is there kind of a fun or kind of a piece of equipment or something that you move that you're thinking about? That
I think one of my favorite was when I was at Schenker. One of our customers was Hockey Canada.
Oh, that would be...
So we moved the junior team all over the world.
Oh, amazing.
And there was one woman on my team who the Hockey Canada team loved and they almost wouldn't talk to anybody else. They had to talk to her. And she would get them there without their hockey sticks being broken, you know, because imagine
huge.
packing up all this equipment and the sticks kind of stick up, right? They don't really fit like a box.
Yeah.
And so other shippers had moved their stuff and hockey sticks got broken and stuff. So they always came back to us and they were very happy with us all the time. But it was always interesting because, you know, I remember one year they were in Korea and there was something wasn't going quite right. And so the gal on my team was dealing with this and in the middle of the night, you know, and that was
because of the timings.
Yeah. And that's what you have to do for your customers is be available. And I think that was one thing that was really interesting to me about the logistics freight forwarding business was when we would be air freighting something on a charter, the level of detail and updates was astounding to me. But our customers would require hourly updates on the charter.
Oh.
So even, you know, the charter left, say, Houston, it's going to arrive in Fort McMurray. It's a 6-7 hour flight. It wasn't good enough to say, like, the ETA is in 7 hours. We had to update them every hour, flights on schedule, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the customers just want to make sure, like, that plane is still coming because something in the oil sands is down and they're losing millions of dollars. That's the only reason they're air freighting some piece of equipment in.
Totally.
And they wanted, like, hourly updates. So I would have to have a team member that was sending an email or calling the customer every hour through the night to make sure that piece of equipment arrived and
fully watching the entire shipment.
And making sure that it landed and it cleared customs quickly. So we would be doing the clearance while the product was in the air, so that as soon as it landed in Fort McMurray, the oil sands company could grab it and put it in
and make sure that you had the right, like, people ready to go for CUSA or whatever on that. Yeah. Totally. That would be like a very big piece.
Yeah.
And then you also have to then get the equipment quickly to the next site.
However, sometimes it would be a teeny apart and some guy would be waiting in a pickup, right? And just grab it and go. But sometimes it would be a big thing that you had to then get a trucking company in to move it.
Completely. But both are, you know. Yeah. Like that one little part, let alone, could almost be worth more than the big part.
Yeah. I do think one of the funnest things we moved was, and this was another woman on my team, she was Porsche's favorite person. And Porsche would test drive their new models. I think they were like 3 years out. Yeah.
So
they would bring them into Canada. They'd land in Calgary, and then they would drive up to like Grand Prairie and up in that area.
Oh, because of the...
Yeah, so they would do like sort of the Grand Prairie, Fort St. John, Chetwynd kind of triangle.
Oh.
And they would test drive because there's not a lot of people up there. Because these Porsches, nobody had seen yet. And so when they would land, Helen, who was the one who looked after that project, she would have almost like a secret warehouse where the Porsches would get put, nobody could see them.
Yeah.
And they would be covered. And then the test drivers would fly into Calgary. And sometimes we would move the Porsches in trailers so that no one could see them up to Grand Prairie where there's less people. And then the drivers would accompany the equipment, the cars, on the drive up there.
Yeah.
And then they would unload them usually in Grand Prairie, and unload them there and then take them for a test drive because they needed to know that they performed in the winter. So this was always in the winter too.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, what better place to make sure your vehicle's going to perform in the winter than Canada. So they would bring them up and drive them around, and the Porsche team loved Helen. God, she's passed, miss her. But they loved her and trusted her. And so she would make all the arrangements every year for them. And
completely.
And the driver. And then we would always be bugging her, like, what does it look like? What do the cars look like? Because Helen would see them, but she would never breathe a word. She would never tell us. Yeah. And I still think of that. Like just yesterday, I thought I saw this new looking Porsche on the road beside me. And I was thinking, wow, I wonder if that's one of the ones that came and did the test drive. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, wow. That would be a neat kind of.
Yeah. Very secret. Like it wasn't difficult to move them, but super top secret. Yeah.
Well, and also, keep making sure like even the vehicles moving were top secret. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, as you're talking about Helen, it kind of reminds me too of like there's some really neat people like you meet along the way, and you've probably worked with some amazing people. You've already highlighted a few too.
Yeah. I remember when I worked with those consultants back in the 90s, the transportation expert was this guy who came in only when we were doing a transportation initiative. And he was like something out of The Godfather. Like he is this Chicago guy, and he just reminded me of someone in a Godfather movie, but he knew everything about transportation. He was so knowledgeable. It was really very cool.
Oh, that's really neat. Yeah. Well, and there's all of those pieces that are just so fascinating. If you look at kind of back at your career and you were giving advice, which you do regularly, what would be one or two of the kind of key pieces you would suggest to people thinking about the industry?
I think the advice I give to people the most is when you're in supply chain, you're in a service role. And some people don't like to think of it that way, but I always thought of myself as a trusted advisor, and I needed to gain the trust of my partners. And in my opinion, say the inventory, for example, is not my inventory. It's the operations inventory. Right. And yes, I'm part of the operations team, but if it's parts for maintenance, then it's the maintenance department's cost. Right. It hits their budget. And so I think it's important that we keep that in mind. It's not my inventory. I'm not going to tell the maintenance guy how many, spare parts he can have. Right. You have to find out how many he believes he needs. And, maybe he does think he needs more than he needs, or she needs more than she needs. And you have intelligent conversations and persuade them why they don't need too many. Yep. And you work with your partner very carefully to make sure you have the right levels of inventory. And I think using a tool like defining critical spares can help your customer overcome the need to have way too much inventory. Oh, yeah. Right? So if you can call out inventory and call it and make those critical spares and manage them differently and strategically, then you give your internal customer a sense of calm and assurance that they have the part they need without stacking their shelves with non-turning parts. Yeah. Right. And so, that's just an inventory example, but I think it's so important to listen to our partners and gain their trust and communicate effectively with them. And so that's, I think, one of sort of the hallmarks of my career is I've always worked really, really well with the operations teams. Oh, yeah. And they've trusted me, where other people come in maybe and try and enforce rules. You can't do this, you can't do that. You shouldn't, and just kind of poo-poo on the operations team. Well, that's the best way to have them go underground and avoid you. And they will. Yeah. Like they will figure out ways to get inventory, buy things, move things. I've joined organizations where disgruntled operations departments were using their own trucking firms and moving stuff without the right insurance, without the, really huge risks. But they were so fed up with this department that was telling them what they couldn't do, they go underground. So that would be my lesson, is that if you don't work with people and work well with people, they will figure out ways to go around you. Exactly. And what a good way to really ensure trust too. Yeah. Yeah. Because trust is the foundation, right? You have to have trust. And the way to build trust is, doing what you say you're going to do and having credibility. And then it's so, so important.
And having worked with you, in various ways and volunteering and stuff like that, I've really noticed, that piece too. So,
No, thank you.
And so I think this has been a really great conversation. I think there's so many different areas that we've covered, and yet there's so much more too.
Yeah. We could go on forever.
Exactly. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this Zebras to Apples podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed the showcase of the fun and fascinating stories of supply chain logistics. If you liked this episode, I would love it if you could give it a rating and review. For more information about this topic, you can go to zebrastoapples.com or follow Zebras to Apples on the social media platform of your choosing, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter X, Blue Sky, or LinkedIn. You can support the show on Patreon. Also, check out the show notes below. Please join me again for another episode of Zebras to Apples. Have a wonderful day.